It's an absolute honor to have this interaction with Anjali Amar, who's the country head of Verizon Enterprise Solutions, a company which is very reputed in the IT space. Anjali has been alumni of Ford School of Management, has over 2 decades of experience in industry. And she's been a key driver in the IT growth in the communication media industry. And these are the two industries where major growth has happened. And she's worked in reputed organizations like Microsoft, Ericsson, and IBM. And now, as I mentioned, she's the country head of Verizon Enterprise Solutions. Over the last decade, she's built up new business relationships, built up volumes, built up market share, and been on the cutting edge of technology in terms of looking at solutions from the customer's perspective. She's a champion HR person. She's a coach, she's a mentor, she's a guide. And today in the Verizon International Arena also, she's taking this fair forward. Today, it's a pleasure to have us with us, and she'll be speaking on 3 key attributes which are very critical for managers to grow. The attributes are critical thinking, self-awareness, and personal brand building. So when I was looking at her profile, I was looking at Anjali Amar. So I was looking at AA, so which mentions A+. So I'm sure this interaction will be very engaging, very, absorbing, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. So over to you, Anjali. We all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a privilege to be joining all of you, especially the young minds out here, to be able to share my thoughts, a lot of experiences from my own personal journey over last 23 to 24 years in the professional career that I've had. And also sharing, as he rightly mentioned, 3 very important critical things, which I believe are important, especially for students when you are foraying out into your own careers. Now, Sonali Mehra, who actually invited me over here, hi Sonali. When she called me up and we were discussing as to what topics we could talk about, a lot of things came to my mind. Things like, what is the industry? What does corporate really expect out of students? How technology is enabling, every industry today. While we were talking of all of these, and she said, she did mention, she said, a lot of people come and talk about these topics, Anjali. These are very easily discussed topics in our college. Why don't we talk of something different? And that is where critical thinking came into my mind. It is not a very easy topic, something which most of us indulge in from time to time. But having said that, this is also a topic which is very easily neglected by most people. Hence, I thought that we must speak on critical thinking today as you foray into, probably your second year or the second year students foraying into their career right now. And also on 2 more very, topics which are very close to my heart: personal awareness or personal branding, as we say, building up your own brand, and self-leadership. Because a lot of people talk about leadership. A lot of people know what leadership is. How do you manage? How do you take teams together? But how do you build up self-leadership in your own self to make a successful career out of a successful career for you? So these are 3 things that we're going to talk about. And I'll start with critical thinking. There are a couple of slides which I have. So I must admit, even before I move on, that I am not somebody who's good on making PowerPoint presentations at all. And this is something which really scares me off. And I've been blessed. Typically, my EAs or my sales ops team or design team in office normally does that. But for today, I didn't want to utilize them to do this for me, because this is something very personal, very close to my heart. So I've made the slides myself. So they will not be those, typical jing jang kind of slides with a lot of animation and stuff. They are simple slides which I'm just using so that it gives a certain body to the content that we're going to be talking about. So I'll share a few slides here, and we're going to talk about those, and it's going to help us to stay on the topic. So just give me a minute to start, sharing the screen here. So as I said, we'll be talking about critical thinking, self-leadership, and personal branding. But I would love to start with critical thinking as a first topic, and I probably would spend maximum time on this. When I was preparing for this presentation or a discussion today, and I was going through certain, some of the thoughts and some of the writings by big authors, I came through this quote: "You have a brain and mind of your own, but it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." And no other than Aristotle had said this. And then the important thing is not to stop questioning. And this, I thought, is an absolutely right prelude to our topic on critical thinking. What really is critical thinking? To me, critical thinking is, about deliberately analyzing information, using our logic, using our reasoning, using our creativity. So, what is critical thinking? It is the art, the skill, the practice of getting to the crux of any subject. And I will use a few examples here from my own life. Uh, Recently, we indulged in buying a property for ourselves. So we stay in a condo here in North Close in Gurgaon, and me and my husband were looking for moving out of this into a bigger space. And we were looking at some villas, and at the same time, we were looking at some condos. And it was over 2 years that we were not able to make our decision. And every time, we would sort of come to a point where we would think that the decision has been made, we would again start wavering. And that is where probably we got critical thinking into helping us. And how that helped us really was, what we did was, we started writing down the information which we really had about why we wanted to move into a new house. What were the reasons, and we listed down those reasons. Once we had that, we started putting logic to those reasons. And then we started analyzing all of that. Things like, our kids are, what age are our kids? My in laws, my husband's parents, what age are they? What are the things which are important for them? How much money do we want to spend over here? How much? And then a lot of other factors like security, like cleaning the house, villa versus a big condo, what is easier to clean. And once we had done all of those, things, we started putting weightage to all of them. And once we had put the weightage, we sort of, added them together, and we could easily make our decision that yes, we want to buy a condo. While both of us were very keen to go and, stay in a villa. But when we actually put reasoning to it and we did analysis of that, when we assessed, what we were, where we were investing and why we wanted to invest, we realized that probably, condo was the best answer to, our issues, our problems of moving from this place. And we invested a huge amount of money to buy that condo. Now, while, we could have come to that decision without applying critical thinking tools as well. But then it would always have been that, oh, I think we made a wrong decision. We should have moved into a villa, because a lot of people stay in villa and they are nice and they look good, they look beautiful. But today, when we actually did that analysis in terms of, what we have and what the future looks like in next 5 years time, and when we put weightage to each and every point, we could make a decision which is giving happiness to both of us, me and my husband. And we are totally at peace with our decision here. While we haven't moved to that place yet, we are still in the process of making that house up. The fact is that critical thinking helped us. Now, even for you, all of you here, why is it that critical thinking or this topic becomes important for you? As you step into a new role, into a professional life, the organizations today definitely look at, people, young minds who can help them to drive growth. And they look at people and individuals who can connect the dots when faced with different pieces of information. Data and information today is, there is huge amount of volumes of data information, on any and every topic that you want to find data on. But how do you actually use that data to your own advantage, to making your own decisions and making decisions for your organization, is something which critical thinking helps you. It helps you to anticipate tough questions which can come from your customers, and customers can be external customers and internal customers both. And when I say internal customers, depending on your role, whether you are in sales, then you have internal customers like product people, your commercial people who give you pricing. If you are in HR, the entire organization is your internal customer. So when you start applying the skill and honing the skill of critical thinking, this is going to help you to anticipate the kind of tough questions which can come to you from your internal customers and external, and at the same time from some industry leaders too. It is going to help you to rely a lot onto mental shortcuts to arrive at conclusions. And this is something which I think each one of us would have gone through. We have these biases in our mind, we have these assumptions in our mind, basis which we at times want to make many decisions. And these are the times when critical thinking comes to your assistance, because making decisions on the basis of mental shortcut is not the best of way to move forward. Probably a few decades back, when the industry was not as competitive, when there were not too many MBAs in the market competing for the same job, this would have been easy. You could just rely on your experience or rely on your gut feel and say, okay, my gut says, my instinct says that I want to do this, and this is why we want to make this decision today. For simple thing like, when you want to expand a product into a new territory, how do you go about doing that? You've learned, from Kotler's principles, you've learned that there are so many P's that have to be, utilized, and that is how critical thinking is reached. So critical thinking allows you not to take that shortcut and say, I want to expand into the territory of quota because, because of these reasons, or because my gut says, because I come from that place. No, critical thinking says that I'm going to expand my product into selling in quota because of these 5 reasons, which are very important. Because, I can position it better, my pricing is going to be better, my competition is not there. So you've analyzed all of those things. So it helps you to identify and also challenge your assumptions. And at the same time, it helps you to consider diverse and multiple alternatives which might be present for you. Okay. Now, while this is why you need to have critical thinking, and this is what critical thinking is, then how do you understand and what are different, steps which are involved when you think about critical thinking? First and foremost is a very important thing of asking the right set of questions, which really means that you cannot have any biases. Now, critical thinking could be for any kind of topic, subject, question. It could be things like, if you are a manager and you have a sales team, and you ask your client reps or the salespeople that why were you not able to sell this product to a client, say Vodafone. You were supposed to go and sell networking to them, but you did not sell it to them. You did not sell this particular line of product, and you sold something else. Why? Now, when you're asking this question, are you really asking the right set of questions or not? Are there any biases? There is something you will need to think. You will have to understand, am I asking this question to this person because I want to demean him in front of people? Or am I genuinely wanting to know why he did not do this? Am I asking the question because I want to increase my sales and genuinely want to provide an impetus to him and give him or her right set of tools so that he could use those tools to go and sell a particular set of product line or solution to that client? So start asking those right set of questions. So that is the first step when you actually indulge in critical thinking. Second step is around curiosity. And then you need to realize and remember that curiosity did not kill the cat. We've all been we've grown up hearing this adage, curiosity killed the cat. But to me, I think curiosity actually triggers innovation. And I'll give you another example here. I'll come off sharing the screen right now. Give me a second, because I like to see my audience when I'm talking. Why can I not come out of sharing my screen? Adil, is my screen still visible?
No.
Okay, it is not. Okay. So, I was talking about curiosity, and how curiosity really enables you to build an innovation into your career and profession. So, this is about a couple of decades back when I had just started working, and I used to work with IBM. I had just joined IBM, and this is about 2003, 2004. I started working in 96, 6 or 7 years into my professional life, and we started working. And I moved from Delhi to Mumbai, and I was a sales rep, and I was given the mantle of handling a very big client called as Hutch. Now it's called as Vodafone, and this was one of the biggest telecom player at that time. And IBM was just not present into this clients. Now I was told that your first job is to go and sell to Hutch, and if you are sort of successful there, we would really understand that you've been successful in your previous organizations, and there is a promotion on the annual for you if you can do this. Now, while I started going there, started meeting up people, trying to understand what they buy, understand the industry, all of those things, I also noticed somewhere that this was a total HP and a Sun shop. HP and Sun were the hardware vendors, and IBM was just not present there. And one of the reasons was because all of their applications used to run only on Sun, because Sun used to come and do. Now Sun is no longer there. We don't find Sun at all. But that time, all the big servers used to be Sun servers. The entire telco industry used to ride on Sun, and other than Sun they would use HP. And then that is where I started becoming very curious as to what is it, why is it that the applications don't run on these servers. And I started digging deep with my client. And at the same time, while I was doing that, I also started asking questions around, could there be a different way of selling to them? Why should I only go and talk of, why don't you buy this server from me, or laptop from me, or a desktop from me? Can I not start looking at a very different business model? And we started asking a lot of questions, and there came an innovation. And this was a coffee table talk, as they say, between me and my boss. And we were thinking, sitting there, and we started thinking around, how do we make this deal so big and so complex in this organization that Hutch, Vodafone would not have any choice but to buy from IBM. While initially when I went there, I was only trying to sell about 1 crore worth of equipment. My first order, which came from there, was a 13 million deal, 13 million USD I'm talking of. So today, if I look at 13 into 74, you can do the maths. That's the first deal that I got from them. And how I got that was because I started innovating in my business model that we used to sell to them. So we went to them and told them that instead of buying 1, 2, or 4 or 10 servers from us, why don't we accumulate your entire compute need? So how much computing would you need for all of these applications? And we would do a reverse engineering where we would say that for say 64 GB of your compute, this is the kind of price that you would get. Now the number of processors what it would go into it, what server would go into it, you leave all of that to IBM. But what you need to understand is that for this kind of compute, that if you are if you're buying at 1 million from HP, we're going to give it to you at 800K or 700K. Now, for the customer, what it did was they got something, they got a pricing which was extremely aggressive. For IBM, what it did was it tied the client down to us with a huge amount of sale, which we would have made to them in next 3 years' time. So we tied the sale for 3 years. And all of this started because we started critically analyzing the data that we had, started innovating on the business models that we could give to the client, and then come to some kind of a decision out there. And that's why I say critical thinking becomes extremely important for us when we want to come up with some new innovation, or we talk of some new things out there. Coming back again to my slides here, creativity again is another important area which critical thinking really helps you to develop, and that could really be your differentiator. Creativity to understand the customer, creativity to understand your internal customers, and creativity to probably present yourself differently, and that could be a differentiator. And all of this comes through critical thinking. Reflect on what you said, what people are saying, and adapt your thoughts around that. I mean, these are few steps which I thought were very important when you would indulge in a critical thinking exercise. Now, while we have so many of these, benefits for critical thinking, why is it that all of us normally do not deploy critical thinking? Why do we shy away from using critical thinking in our day-to-day process? And this is what I could think of. Some of the barriers which are there for critical thinking are self-doubt or lack of confidence. At times we might think of some new things, we have new ideas, but we are not very clear of how somebody else is going to accept them. So if I was to say, Adil, can you tell me, when you move into KPMG tomorrow, I don't know where you would be going, but would you be open for working at KPMG? Now, you might have self doubt saying that, ma'am, I'm not a consultant material. I'm a salesperson or I'm an HR person. Now, that self doubt or lack of confidence would probably help you from critically thinking that KPMG is probably looking at somebody exactly like you with your skill sets. So, that is one of the barriers we have. Intimidation. At times, when you are in a group or when you're sitting with your parents or family or friends, you're intimidated by other people around. There would always be a person in a group who would be very vocal, who would want to say that, this is my thought, bang on the table and say, this is what we were going to do because I believe in this. And that super confidence of the other guy at times intimidates us, and we are not, we are sort of shy of putting our ideas out. Then again, time requirements. You're supposed to come up with a solution within few seconds, few minutes. And that's the time we stop doing critical thinking. We just come up with answers which are our regular answers. Complexities of problems. There are issues which are very complex, which need a lot of understanding, which need a lot of debating around. And that is where uh, we do not want to get into that. We want to make it simple, and hence we shy away from critical thinking. And then, why I wrote what else might be a barrier? You need to really think, because each one of us would have a different barrier in our mind to the critical thinking process, right? Some of the tools which I thought you could use if you were to do critical thinking, you know. And critical thinking is not just when you join an organization. Critical thinking could be used when you would be sitting for your interviews too. When you would be deciding on what kind of job, what kind of industry you want to get into. You're all professional people, right? You're into a professional course and you would all become professionals. You might be thinking on, I want to join a startup. The other person wants to join an MNC. Now both of them are right answers, right? Nobody is wrong. When I say that I wanted to join an IT organization, I wasn't wrong 25 years back. But another friend of mine who wanted to join an FMCG and is still doing well, she wasn't wrong either. So, each one of us will have to make our own decisions, but we will have to use these critical thinking tools. Now, how do we use these tools and what these tools are? One of the first ones is around problem definition. What is it that you are trying to really solve? What logic do you have? What reasoning can you bring around it? But most important is, what is your problem? Are you trying to solve the issue of what your goal is for next 5 years? Are you trying to solve the problem of which industry you want to join? Are you trying to solve the problem of, you have 3 jobs which have been offered to you, which one should I take? One is offering me 20 lakhs per annum, the other is offering 7 lakhs per annum, and the third one probably is offering me 10 lakhs right now, but next year they are promising me to give 15 lakhs per annum, an increment which is going to be absolutely at a fast pace. So what is your problem? Once you've defined your problem, can you then start, thinking about it, talking about it, and coming to some kind of answers for that? And how do you come to answers? A very, very critical tool, very important tool, which I have used very effectively in my professional life is brainstorming. So I work with Verizon. Now, Verizon is a big giant in US. We are the biggest wireless operator in US. In India, we do wireline services, security, and voice services. Now, there was a time last year when a lot of people from my team had to be we had to let them go for different reasons. And, some SMEs went away. And then we came through some problems with some new clients where we just didn't have any answers. And we were to depend on teams which is sitting out of US or Australia. I report into Australia. So most of the SMEs used to be in Australia. Now, with the time difference of 4.5 hours or 5.5 hours, depending on which season we are in, it became very difficult to onboard these people and help us with our clients. So what we started doing was we started brainstorming. I have a team. Some of the members have been in Verizon for 12 years. Somebody is there for 17 years since the time MCI WorldCom came into India. Verizon, by the way, acquired MCI WorldCom. So we have a lot of MCI WorldCom people with us also. And there are few people who are 5 years old, and then people like me who are just about 3 years old in the organization. So we started brainstorming our problems. So we get together into a conference room or onto a con call, and we put the problem across. And it is, it could be problem as easy as this customer has been given a price of 50% less by our nearest competition, which is Tata Comms. How do we win this? The customer is not agreeing to the payment terms. Or it could be very complex problems where on an SD WAN, his application cannot run, but he still wants to use SD WAN. So what do we do? And invariably, I have found that when you get the right set of people and put the problem on the table, and when you do brainstorming, there are so many ideas which come up, and there are so many new solutions and conclusions that one can reach to. So, brainstorming really helps you there. Then, another tool which I find very useful is listing down the pros and cons of your problem and the solution. Because till the time you do not write on one side what are the pros and what are the cons, you really cannot do the weighted ranking for that. So you mention the pros and cons and you do the weighted ranking there, and that helps you to really make your decision. And the most important one, which I really love, is the devil's advocacy. One of you, so whenever you do a critical thinking exercise, even if it is between two people, say you and your professor, or you and your best friend, you and your spouse, or you and your parent, one of your parents, let one of the person be a devil's advocate, because that tells you what competition is really going to ask you, because that tells you what could be the flip side of your decision. So, for example, if Sonali said, Anjali, would you want to come and speak in this forum? And I would say, yes. My husband should have said, why would you do that? Don't you think it is going to take away your time from your office? Don't you think? So, that is devil's advocacy. Coming up with negatives out there so that you are prepared for all of the answers. So critical thinking is not about criticizing somebody, but helping you reach that decision, even if it involves that, devil's advocate kind of a role out there. So I'm not saying don't criticize or do criticize. No, I'm saying let somebody point out all the negatives out there, and then you can make a very balanced decision out, right? So that was there. These were few things which I thought I would talk on critical thinking. I hope, it has made sense. Before I move on to my next topic, is there any, thought in your mind, any question? We could make this interactive if you are okay. Anything that you might want to put forth?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
So, can you also throw some light on that there are set sales processes within the organizations, like we were just talking about, and then there are various critical, very key accounts where we just have to modify those processes.
Right.
So, in sales, is that the straight line of process? Is it to be followed every time, or how do we go about it?
No, never, never. So sales will never have a straight line process ever. While you might want to think, there are certain processes which are always advocated, things like, you have to first find an opportunity, then you have to build that opportunity, and then you start closing that opportunity. So when you look at a life cycle of sales, these are few steps which are involved. But these steps could, there is no proper 1, 2, 3 kind of ranking to that steps. Step number 3 could come first, step number 4 could come first, and step number 1 could go the last. It could go anytime. So that is on how you identify an opportunity, how you build that into a funnel, and then how you close. But in terms of your understanding on the hierarchy bit, in terms of how you give the pricing, every organization has different set processes. But most of the organization today have realized that following a strict process does not help. They are open for innovation, and they are open for looking at young people coming in, using the data that they have, leveraging that data, and then coming up with newer set of solutions out there. So, for example, when I hire the youngsters out there, and I'm very, very keen to hire youngsters because the thought process is very revolutionary, is very different. Like there is this gentleman in my team sitting out of Mumbai, not very young, about 32, 33, and he questions any and everything that I say. I would tell him, Jay, I think this is what you should be doing. And he would be like, first thing is, ma'am, why do you think I should do this? Why can I not do this? And then we get into a discussion around, why I said this and why he's saying that, and then we come to a conclusion. Now, it also depends on the relationship you have with your superior, with your boss in the organization, and how open and transparent he or she is to understanding you and your thought process. And that is where my next topic, personal branding, will also come in. So all of these things are very interlinked. When you do critical thinking, when you're trying to sell something, because we are selling all the time. I'm selling my idea to you, right? You're buying what I'm saying. You would be selling your idea to your teacher, to your parents, and you would be selling your ideas to the internal customers in the organization you join and the external customers. So there will never be a set process. How you put your thoughts together, how you logically find a solution to that, helps you to helps the person to make a decision about whether they should agree to you or not.
Good afternoon, ma'am. So, while talking about critical thinking, you gave us an example that you were confused between buying a villa and a condo. So, when you analyzed the reasons and listed them down, did you consider your personal preference? Did you give it a higher weightage, or do you just focus on the facts while indulging in critical thinking?
So both of us sat down because there were two decision makers here majorly, which was me and my husband, while my kids and my in-laws were also there. So their weightage was less. For both of us, we listed down those 10 criterion. And these criterions were things like price, security, cleanliness, beauty. So what all was important to me and what was important to him. We listed down all of that. And then we gave weightage as per, what was most important to me. So, for example, for me, the most important was security because my kids are 14 and 16, and I travel 3 days a week. Before COVID, I used to do that. My husband travels, so security became a very important thing for me, and so was it important for my husband also. But there were certain other things where for him the weightage was higher on something else. For me, weightage was higher on something else. Like for example, I'll give you, the villas that we were looking at were in 2 floors. For my husband, he didn't like the fact that there were 2 floors. He gave very less weightage to the fact that we could have the master bedroom on first floor and the drawing dine on the lower floor. I gave a very high weightage to that because for me that sort of kept my living quarters and the guest quarters separate. So both of us gave the weightage accordingly, and then we added up. So in a business problem also, your weightage on something could be different basis your experience and learning. Somebody else's could be basis their experience and learning. You might be in marketing. Your weightage on marketing might have been very high when you joined. I don't know which stream you have, but just hypothetically. But the other person might have taken finance because his weightage on finance was, basis his goals and vision for him in his life. So all of us would have a different weightage to, what we choose.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, please.
So basically, the question is, I just wanted to understand that in your corporate professional life, do you basically have a brainstorming session for every important decision which is there in the company, or sometimes when you are not sure about something, that is when go for the brainstorming session? Because if you are organizing a brainstorming session and all the stakeholders from the meeting, if you are the decision maker, and something comes up, basically the discussion leads to something which in your gut feeling that it might not work, then how do you handle that kind of situation?
Very brilliant question, I must say. Now, again, I've been working for 24 years. Critical thinking and uh, openness in the organization, these are things which have started happening for last 4 or 5 years. I remember when I was in IBM 7, 8 years back, or even before that, we would never think of brainstorming. This was not something which was the buzzword, or this was not taken very nicely also. Right. So if I would go back and tell my boss that, let's discuss on this problem, the solution that you've given might not work, he wouldn't have liked it. He would tell me, listen, I have this experience and I'm telling you with this experience and you need to do this. And we used to follow without even thinking or saying that, no, this might be wrong. There can be another solution to it. But today times have changed. We have more the intelligentsia from MBA colleges is there in the organization, and that has helped us to look at our decision making in a very different manner. People take brainstorming very positively, and no, for every problem we do not brainstorm. It is only when we cannot solve, because brainstorming also means there is a lot of time which goes into it. It can at times lead to a lot of wastage of time also. So when a leader is there, depending on what kind of leader is there, he or she takes a decision of brainstorming or not. And depending on how the leader is comfortable, depends whether, like me as a person, I like to hear various kind of viewpoints. And there could be somebody who thinks that I am very, very wise and experienced, and I don't think I would like to hear from everybody, but I have a close set of circle of people whose point of view I'm going to listen to. So you have to gauge and then gradually start, telling people that brainstorming is good. And that is how it happens. So no, not for everything, but for few important decisions, we definitely brainstorm. And there could be times where the answers are going to be different than what you were anticipating. But that is the whole idea of brainstorming, right? You don't brainstorm to get the same answers. If I was to follow what I wanted to do, I wouldn't have brainstormed them. I brainstorm because I understand that it might give me solutions which are other than what I have in my mind, and I'm open to adopting and adapting to those. And that's where I said, it is very important to be flexible and be able to adapt to that also.
So, ma'am, as a leader, do you feel the need to basically involve, even if, let's say, you have decided on some decisions? As a leader, do you basically feel the need to involve your core team into that decision so that everyone is on the same page?
Absolutely. Without that, you can never be successful. See, no leader can be successful if his or her team is not helping and going along with you, right?
Okay.
Your team
Yeah.
has to be there supporting you,
So
right?
sometimes, sometimes does it happen that you have to compromise on your gut feeling and go with the brainstorming, whatever
Oh
it is?
yes. Like I'll give you an example. I've been working in IT industry all my life. Verizon is the first telecom industry that I joined, core telecom. While I used to sell to telecom, but I never worked in core telecom. So while I understand digital transformation, I understand how sales really happen, and I'm good at that. Good at relationship management, but understanding the core telco is not my forte. So when I came in, I used to rely a lot onto my team to understand, why they were making those decisions, why they would want to sell an MPLS versus an SD-WAN, if you would know. So SD-WAN is more towards cloud, and MPLS is more like, selling perpetual deals. So at times they would tell me that, ma'am, for this client, we will only sell MPLS. We will not go and pitch SD-WAN. And I remember one of the first times, and I looked at this guy, I said, why would you do that? SD-WAN is the latest technology. The organization wants to push us there, and you are denying. So he gave me a very logical reason. He said, मैम बिलिंग खत्म हो जाएगी हमारी, आप सोच के देखो, इस कस्टमर को मैंने अगर SD-WAN बेच दिया, जो मैं 1 मिलियन का डील ला रहा हूँ, वो 100K की रह जाएगी. So do you want to do that for this quarter, or do you want me to do that next quarter? So very logical reason. And I said, okay, for this quarter, let's still sell him another circuit of MPLS. But next quarter onwards, looking at the market condition, if I don't sell SD-WAN, a competitor might come and sell it. I would compromise on my billing, on my revenue, but we'll do that. So yes, you have to listen to the people around and make your decisions.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. This is Ashwin here.
Hi, Ashwin.
Ma'am, would you mind taking a minute talking about the Hutch deal? Because there are a few of us who come from the services space. In fact, there are fellow BDs here who really look up to you, to have a similar career trajectory. So one thing that we have faced is that when I personally used to work for a services firm, what used to happen was we did not have a brand like IBM. So, like you said, whatever critical thinking I apply, unless there is some amount of credibility involved, it was difficult. So what we used to go and do was to try and understand if is there anything that I can let's say bring, if if there is a hardware, if there is a system, if there is some consulting that we could do. So that's how we used to approach those deals. So in the Hutch deal that you were talking about, you had mentioned that you tied them down for 3 years. But I'm pretty sure there were other players present inside.
Absolutely,
how
HP
did
and
you-
Sun.
Yes. So how did you stop them from? Could you maybe give us a little bit of nitty-gritty of
A
that?
topic very close to my heart, though it's been 2004 when I did that first deal, and today we are sitting in 2020, 16 years now. But and then I started selling to media. Now, one of the things which I totally believe in as a salesperson and which I keep teaching my teams across various organizations that I worked is consultative selling. So I'll move a little bit from critical thinking and that and come back to that later. So consultative selling is something which I totally believe in, which really means that when you go to a customer, you do not go there to sell to a customer. Whatever you are selling, whether you're selling IT or consumer or whatever, you have to remember three things about your customer. Why does a customer buy from you? A customer is going to buy from you when you are able to solve any business problem for them. They might be having a business problem, say that they're more expensive than their competition. That's a business problem. They want to spread into a new territory, foray into a new territory. They're not able to do that, but your solution, your product, your services can help you do that. That's a business issue you're resolving. They could have a business issue around pricing that you might have. So, first and foremost, a customer would buy from you when you help them to resolve a business issue. Second, the customer will buy from you when you are cheaper than competition. So if they might be buying from somebody else, but they realize that the ROI that they're getting working with you is much better than what competition is offering to them. So that's the second reason they buy from you. And these two are the most important reasons why any customer buys. And the third most important reason why a customer buys from you is personal rapport. Okay. A CIO, a CEO, a CTO, when he or she feels that, by this person is giving me that kind of importance and he or she is helped me become a hero in my own organization by buying this, he or she indulges in that sale. So, for example, I used to go to this client, Sony TV, long time back. And I realized that this gentleman was very hungry for a lot of knowledge around the latest technology, around the latest speeds and feeds and all of those kind of things. So I used to read a lot and I used to go and tell him about a lot of those kind of things that, this is how this is new technologies come in, this is what's going to help. And then he would go and tell that to his CTO. And that used to make him look like a hero that, okay, I have got this thing and, IBM is helping me. So I would, work into that need of his. So you have to identify what is the need of your client. Is he looking at you for solving his business problem? Is he looking at you for just cost? Or is he looking at you for personal gain? He might just be a CIO minus one person, but because he deployed that technology of yours, he would be known in the industry saying that he's the most upwardly mobile CIO of this industry. And his name comes on that, magazine of the CIO forum or CTO forum. And that is why he would want to buy from you. So which really means that when you get into your client's place, understand the industry of the client first before you go on. So if it's a telco, understand what telco really is. How does telco work? What is their business? What makes their business tick? And what makes them earn money in their business? So understand that. Then understand that particular client and the optics around him and her. Understand the business applications, very important. Any industry, understand the business applications. And then fourth, understand what are the issues they are facing. Once you have all of this information, then put it together and see, can I sell something? Can I give them some solution which is going to help them address any of those three needs that I spoke about? And that is when a sale is made. Coming back to my example of Hutch, what I realized was HP and Sun was selling them a lot of hardware. A lot of their applications were running on that hardware. But what HP was doing was HP finalized onto a model of server. Every time they would need something, they would have to renegotiate on the price of that server and they would buy. So we realized that there was time being spent on buying a server every single time, right? And there was a lot of negotiation happening. And that was something to me, I wanted to go back and tell them that why do you have to waste this time in negotiation? And why do you have to go back on, new technology, evaluate new technology every time? I will give you the latest technology, latest speed and feed on this server, but you will have to, bring all of that, bring it in volumes. So you tell me across your 13 circles, that time they used to have 13 circles, Across your 13 circles, how much compute would you need in next 3 months, in 6 months, next 3 years? Once I had that kind of a analysis from them, then I looked at how many applications were running on which speeds and feeds, which ones of them were expiring, which ones of them were going to get out of warranty, and then started working backwards. So, you have to do a lot of research before you can make a big sale. It is not as easy as going in and saying, hey, listen, I'm from IBM, I want to sell you this. In fact, IBM no longer sells hardware. That was the time when they used to sell hardware. They are only into services now, applications and services. So you have to get into the psyche of the customer, understand what makes him or her tick, and then go and make that sale, then make that pitch for that sale. And also probably ask them also, when you do that relationship mapping, ask them what is it that makes them tick, why do they buy. Have that conversation. Don't shy away from conversations with your customers. Fireside conversations, chai side conversations, formal conversations, all kinds of conversations, they always help.
Ma'am, so you mentioned, one of the barriers to critical thinking is complexity of problems, right?
Yes.
And I think what happens is most of us don't know what's the starting point when we talk about a complex problem, right? So as young entrepreneurs or people, somebody who will go in corporates, what do you suggest should we develop as a skill set, or probably tools or techniques that at least give us a starting point towards complex issues, rather than shunning them away or just like putting it off?
First and foremost is acknowledging that there is nothing which is impossible. All complex or easy things have answers to them, and you can find, and there is no right and wrong answers. For every problem there will be a right and a wrong answer depending on which point of view you have. So whenever you get stuck into, so in terms of advice, let me say that start reading a lot. I find youngsters hooked onto their phones. Even I am, but I still do a lot of reading. I invest a lot into myself, into upgrading my skill set on technology, sales, communication, everything. So invest a lot of time onto your own reading and honing up your own skills, so that when you talk to somebody, somebody knows that this person is serious and knows something about the topic. Then second is, wherever you're getting stuck, you have so many resources on tips of your hand, fingers, as they say. Go Google it out, read about them, and then leave the shyness. You shouldn't be shy to put across any problem to anybody. Say, and there shouldn't be any shyness in saying that I do not know, I don't understand. Please tell me, please repeat. A lot of times as youngsters we think that, oh, we recently joined, and what would my boss think, she doesn't even know this. No, I would rather that you ask me that question and I explain it to you, than just assuming that you know so many things. Because then I would give you a job which you might not be able to do, and which is going to be worse than you telling me that, ma'am, I do not know this, can you please explain, or please tell me this. So when you get into critical thinking, first and foremost, accept that there is a problem. So identifying a problem, as I said, identify what the problem is. Get together a few people with you with whom you can discuss, where you have a rapport and you know that they will not make fun of you. At times, we think that, oh, these guys are going to make fun of us. So develop that core group around you with whom you can, discuss these things. And all complex issues can be then solved. So break them into steps. Any complex problem, when you break them into steps, it becomes easy. Start writing what is the problem, why is the problem. So start using those, 5 Ws: what, where, why. All of those questions you need to ask, and keep asking. So what if I do this? Okay, if I've done that, what if I did not do this? What if, if this was done, what would be the answer? How would I come to that? So all of those hows and whys are things that you have to indulge in, and that is where you will come to some answers then. Okay, I'll go back to sharing my screen again, and we'll move on to another very, very interesting topic. Let me first share my screen with you, and which is on leadership and self leadership. Okay, so what really is leadership? Leadership is using the greatness in you to achieve and sustain extraordinary outcomes by engaging the greatness in others. But at the same time, if you read the quote below, it says, mastering others is a strength, but mastering yourself is the true power. And that is what self leadership really is, right? So, a lot of people visualize to become a leader. But to me, I think leadership starts from being a self leader. Till the time you do not attain, self leadership, becoming adept at what you want to do, achieving your own ambitions and goals, you will not ever be able to become a team manager, a leader, a CEO, whatever you want to be in life. So any leadership starts with self leadership. And that is where they say that exceptional leaders distinguish themselves because of superior self leadership. Now, how do you get this self leadership? What do you do to become, saying that, oh, I have mastered the art of being a self leader? There are 3 steps to it. First and foremost is self awareness, knowing what you are currently, and then deciphering where you want to be in next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years time frame, or 20 years time frame. Now, it could be as simple as saying that I just want to earn money in next 10 years time and become, a multimillionaire. Or it could be something like saying that I want to be a CEO of this kind of an organization. Or it could be I want to be a mentor and coach. Or it could be I want to open up my own startup, start my own thing, and make it a big industry organization. So where is your self awareness? You have to have that self awareness around what is it that you want to achieve, and then taking the responsibility of working towards achieving those goals of yours, which really means having the self regulation and self motivation both, right? So you need to, at any given point of time, keep doing a rain check on, I wanted to do these 5 things. Have I done them or not? Am I on my right track or not? What am I really doing? And then keep motivating your own self, not waiting for somebody else to be motivating you. It is not that, a Professor Sonali is going to come and say, hey guys, have you done this or not? Why did you not do this? Or your mom coming and beating you up and saying that, why did you not eat this? You're supposed to eat this because this is going to give you proteins. No, you know that if I want to become a CEO of an organization, I have to do these 5 new skill learning. I have to practice those things and experience those things and make people aware that I am ready to step into that position. That is how you keep self motivating yourself. So, in my mind, I think these are few steps you really need to take when you want to develop self leadership. Self awareness, as I said, know what you want to achieve. Self discipline, extremely critical. Be disciplined in where you are moving, where you are going. Motivating your own self. And then personal branding. Again, a very, very important thing when you want to develop self leadership. How do you develop your own personal brand, right? What do you want people to know you as? Because what you project yourself as and who you really are, these can be 2 different things. But if you really want to be a leader, they have to be similar things. What you project to the world and what you are should be same, and that is how you need to do your own personal branding, so that people, even when you are not there in the room, think about you as that. So if you want people to know that you are a confident person, show that confidence, build that confidence in them, and have that self confidence in your own self. If you want people to think that you are a very good negotiator, start showing those skill sets, so that when there is a big deal which is happening and the CEO wants somebody to go and negotiate that, they call you in for that. And if there is a job opening where somebody senior has left and they want to fill those shoes, they call you up for that. Effective communication skills, very critical. You might be very good in your job, but if you're not able to communicate that to um, your team members, to your internal and external customers, you don't move up the ladder at all. So written and spoken, both communication skills have to be very good. Critical thinking, we spoke on this in length, very, very important. And thinking like a CEO. So what is it that a CEO wants? CEO wants that the business results should be good. CEO wants that the stock options should go up. The CEO wants that the EPS of his stock should go up. CEO wants that his board should think that he's the best CEO or she's the best CEO. Start thinking like a CEO and then think, what would my CEO want? Do I have those skill sets in me? Have I developed those qualities in me or not? And then above all, embrace yourself. You might be good in a few things, you might not be very good in few of them, but you can keep working on that. But embrace yourself completely, love yourself completely, and keep working on making the best of you. you know Try and become the best image of who you are, what you want to be known as. Embrace yourself, work on that, and then be the best. And the last one, which I mentioned, which is something very, very close to my heart, is an equation. Performance is equal to potential minus obstacles. Give me a minute. I'll want to spend some time here. Let me stop my screen and come back to all of you. Yeah, performance. So in my mind, when you want to perform and when you want to really showcase who you are, and this performance could be in your exams, this performance could be at your work. How do you perform? Your performance can actually be equal to your potential, and your potential is what you can do, what you think in your mind, and what you really are. So can your performance be equal to your potential? It can. But how can it be equal to your potential? Only when you remove all the obstacles on the way. Now, these obstacles can be of two kinds: your internal obstacles and your external obstacles, right? The internal obstacles, let me first actually talk of external. The external obstacles are easy. I do not understand these algorithms. I am not good in maths. I'm not good in my analytical thinking. I'm not good in uh, Java. I'm not good in this language. So I can take some courses to remove those obstacles. If I have to be if I have a technical career in my mind, I could remove those external obstacles by taking up some courses. But what about the internal obstacles? Internal obstacles are like, I'm not so confident. I can't, I have the stage fear. I can't go and speak in front of 10,000 people. I want to say that I'm good, but in my heart, I believe that I don't know this. Now, it is very important for you to analyze, think back, sit and analyze that what are your internal obstacles, and start working on those internal obstacles. And each one of us has internal obstacles. So understand and work towards them. Like, I spend a lot of time with my team members understanding what their internal obstacles are. Some of them have this fear of not being able to speak in front of a CEO. They keep practicing, but moment a big CEO of a big company comes, they are mum, they just don't talk. Like, I had this fear when I was in college, and when, this is a very funny incident. When we were preparing for the jobs, the companies started coming and all of that. I wanted to go into an FMCG. And the only company I wanted to work was Dabur. Okay, so many organizations came, and I didn't sit for any of those, GDs, because I wanted to go for Dabur. And then Dabur came. I sat for the GD, and I was so overwhelmed that, once they had done their presentation, nothing came out of my mouth. I was mum. I was quiet. I was so scared or overwhelmed that I just didn't speak. Dabur picked up 5 people from my college, and of course, I was not one of them because I didn't speak. The way I'm talking now, you would think that, oh, she could never be quiet. She would have always been talking. But I was absolutely quiet, mum, and I couldn't understand myself. That was my internal obstacle, the fear of talking in front of, people who were most important for me. And from that day till now, I've been working on overcoming this fear. Any given chance to talk, I go and talk on the stage. I had never done debates in my school and college. MBA taught me to do that. And that is what even your MBA college would be doing for you. It teaches you to be on the stage, talk in front of people, and be able to speak when you want to speak and what you want to speak. That was my internal obstacle. I overcame that. And that is why today I can go and speak anywhere, in any forum, any topic. I love the chance of being given the mic and I start talking. So understand your internal and external obstacles, and then your performance can be equal to your potential, because you have huge potential, each one of you. That is why you are sitting in this brilliant college. You wouldn't have reached here if you didn't have that potential. So let your performance be equal to your potential, remove those obstacles, and let your performance become equal to your potential. So that was on self leadership. Any questions if we have on self leadership? Otherwise, I'll move on to personal branding. I love the mic you guys have. It's like a square dice, and you're playing with it.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Varun, and so your journey from like a BD manager to sales director, and then now country head, managing entire sales and basically business part of the organization. But as you just like mentioned, you first wanted to be in an FMCG and industry, and now you are serving in services telecom industry.
Yeah.
So how was your like you were self? How did you develop your awareness in terms of your interest? And you focused on only one. I don't know. You focused, or it was a journey throughout, and you might have got opportunities to switch on your industries or something like that. So how
Yeah.
did you manage to
So
stick to your particular domain?
sure. So in fact, if I would tell you my story, I wanted to be a brain surgeon. Okay, and I'm a bio student, and I come from a very small town called as Meerut, and my dad was like focused on only making me a doctor, and I wanted to be a brain surgeon. That's it, nothing else in my mind. And somehow, fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, though fortunately is what I would want to think, I did not get through my CPMT. Some issues, there was a death in the family. My mama had died, and I couldn't sit for the exams. I missed some exams, whatever, blah blah blah. I didn't get into MBBS, and I went into my BSc, and I just didn't know what to do in life then. I wanted to have a career, but I didn't know what. And it was a small city where people wouldn't even know of MBA. Then one of my neighbors, he was doing MBA from CMD Modi Nagar, and he came back and told me, Anjali, there is this exciting course called as MBA. I've got enrolled in that. Why don't you do MBA? And that's how I started preparing for MBA, and I got into Ford School of Management. And then I realized that I was very good on consumer behavior and advertising. My ad teacher was from O&M. He offered me a job even while I was in my first year. He said that once you've done your second year, you will come and work in O&M. He offered me a job there. But I was very clear that that was not the industry that I was looking at, because in my mind, I had those preconceived notions that ad industry means working very late and, coming from a middle class small town. Those typical things in your mind. No, अच्छी लड़कियां रात को late नहीं जाती. Those kind of things 24 years back, you can understand. So I made a decision, bad decision. But I made that decision that I don't want to get into consumer behavior and I don't want to get into ad agency. And then started this love for FMCGs. And I didn't get through Dabur. Another setback. So my life is, my professional career is a story of, failure becoming a stepping stone to success. And then this company called as IT&T, a very small company, came into my college. And I remember I had got a beating at night from one of my neighbors in Delhi, where I was staying, that tomorrow, if you come without taking your first job, I'm going to kick you out of this colony. Because you're not even realizing, if you don't pick up a job from college, it becomes very difficult to pick up jobs. So I picked up this job. And this was selling digital computers. This was a partner of digital and selling digital computers. But I think that was the best decision I ever made in my life, because when I got into this organization and I started selling, I realized that I had this flair for technology. I understand technology very well, and it gives me an edge, or it used to give me an edge over many people in the industry. That time, technology companies used to pay you much better than what FMCGs did. So while my colleagues were getting 4,500 as salary, I got 7,800 as my first salary. No, 8,500 as my first salary. And I was very happy. Today, that might be a very small salary. You don't even give to your maids. But I was very happy with that salary. So that was my first thing. I want to be in this industry because it pays well. Then I realized that I had this flair for technology. And then over the years, I got chance of moving into many industries because I was doing and I had this passion for selling. But what I realized was that I enjoyed interacting with people and having those intelligent conversations around things which would improve their business. And I think I had this mindset of understanding their business even when they never used to talk about this. When we were young, they would only teach us about go and sell a computer. Nobody would tell you that go and understand the business of the customer and then sell a computer. We used to be told, जाओ जाके एक लैपटॉप बेचो, IBM का 4 लाख का आता है, कंप्यूटर बेचो. But my mind was, I used to go and sell AS400s. And from IT&T, I moved to another partner called as Quantum, and they used to sell IBM. I would love to go and sell AS400 because AS400s were black boxes, which were a lot of technology, and they were solving issues for big issues, business issues for the customers. So I started realizing that I had this knack for understanding technology, and I loved that. And I think I never moved from there because I enjoyed technology. So each one of you will have to make those mistakes in your life and move up. So in your journey, you will realize what you like and what you don't like. Fortunately for me, till now, I have always liked sales, and I'm in sales. While I've been given chances of moving into marketing, into HR, into I don't know what all, corporate communication, but I've put my foot down and said that I want to sell. There is a salesman inside me. I enjoy that thing around. If you tell me you can't sell to that particular customer or you can't sell this technology, I get absolute pleasure of going and selling it to the same person and a big sale and big deal happening. That gives me the maximum happiness. So I'm doing what I enjoy, and that is something which you should remember. Get into an industry, into a job which you enjoy, because career is not short term, it is going to be long term for you. So do what you enjoy. If you're not going to do what you enjoy, you are going to burn out very, very fast.
Right.
You will.
So, ma'am, basically, learning from your journey and loving what you do and being optimistic and aware and working on yourself would eventually make yourself like whatever we do. But again,
Absolutely.
difference between your time and our time is like we are so open to choices and we so awareness is too much of information is there, and again, opportunities are too many opportunities are there.
Immense.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we focus on our core competency, or we should be able to focus on everything and one specialty?
देखो, एक तो ब्रॉड चॉइस तो पता है ना आपको. When you made a choice between marketing versus finance versus HR versus whatever streams that you have.
Right.
So that is one broad choice you've made. Do you love numbers? Do you like interacting with people? Do you like doing this? So that choice is made. Now from here things become easy and difficult also. So one is any industry or any field that you are into, remember that knowing about technology, being able to use data is something which any and every role and industry would require of you. So, whatever you are choosing in life, remember that you should be a good person in comprehending data and making a good analysis and decision out of that data. So, start learning and practicing that. Then coming to how do you make a choice, it's a very difficult thing. So it will depend on the kind of people you've been surrounded with, what your experience have been, your family, your friends around you, and your career counselor, how they guide you, what your teachers around you guide you. So it is it is to each his own, as they say. So you will have to really figure out what is it that you like. Do you like analytics a lot? Then get into data analytics kind of field. Now again, in data analytics, do you want to sell it or do you want to become a professional working onto data analytics? I want to become a professional working on data analytics. Do you want to work on insurance or do you want to work in medical sector? Do you want to work in auto insurance? What is it that you want to work on? Which kind of analytics do you want to do? So, it's very deep, but at least start with the basic choice of knowing that I want to sell technology, I want to sell FMCG, I want to be in HR, I want to be in, teaching and coaching, or I want to be in marketing. So at least have those broad choices. Then it will have to be, again, depending on what career choices you make, you will learn, you will go wrong, you will learn. So it cannot be an easy answer. You will only come
Right.
to know as you move into your career. So I'm sorry, my friend, there are
Yeah,
no
yeah.
easy answers here.
No, ma'am. So basically, if I talk about myself only, so I'm a CA and I have done CFA level 3, and I was working in the lending industry. So
Okay.
I invested this. I want to invest the next year of mine to focus on basically I'm investing in myself only and wanted to explore more fields. So I just wanted to know from your journey, so how to make opportunity cost decisions and where exactly are we lacking or how can we get.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't have much knowledge about your industry, really, the kind of career paths you can have there. I don't know much about that. Probably Sonali might be able to help you more.
Yeah, I
So,
just wanted to hear your journey. Thank you, ma'am.
but yeah, for my journey, yes, I've made my choices. And, again, when I said embrace yourself and love yourself is also around when you make a choice, learn to make a choice early on and learn to make a choice and live with your choice. So a lot of times, and this happens in very small things in life also. When we can't make decisions, we keep wavering and the time goes away. Remember, there is always a time cost, opportunity cost which is involved. So when there are five opportunities and you do not pick that up just thinking that isme se best kaun sa hoga, somebody else might come and pick up all five of them and you will be left with nothing. So you have to learn to make your choices fast, take your opportunities, and that is where I'm saying analysis of your data becomes very crucial. Critical thinking comes in. Do a brainstorming with your friends, with your teachers, with your seniors, and probably mentors in the industry. Build up mentors in the industry; they will help you. Whichever industry you want to go to, get some mentors, two or three, who can help you to decide what you want, you should be doing.
One last small thing. What do we
Sure.
mean by VES strategy? And basically, when you say that you focus on retaining the high value customers, and by VES strategy, what do we mean by that?
What is VEA? I don't know.
So basically, it's like your company's name only, and your strategy about
Oh, Wes, that would be Wes. That will be Verizon strategy, really. So there are two kinds of customers, high value customers, and then of course there are low hanging fruits, as we say. So you always have to work on both of them. There will always be two or three, high value customers that you will want to have for life, and with them, because you know that they will give you business for over next few years. But there will always be small opportunities which would be easy, faster, so that run rate business goes on. So you work on them as well. And there are different ways and means to retain high value customers versus small deal customers. While you might want to do very aggressive pricing for small value customers, because it's a one time sale, for high value customers there are very different ways and methods you engage them with.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much. So I'll move on to the next one then, and I'll share my screen again with you. This is just an image which I've picked up from Google, so that is why you'll find I methods and all of that. Now, what really is personal branding? And I'll read this definition because I found it interesting. Personal branding is the process of how we market ourselves to others. Very simple, kind of definition, but this is what personal branding really is. How you market yourself to others, which really include how you project yourself, how you talk, how you walk, how you bring yourself, your persona into that room, what your thoughts are, how much your knowledge is, what you want people to think about you when you are not present in the room, uh, what is it that you want people to say when you are present in the room. All of that really means personal branding, right? So typically we used to hear of branding earlier when about objects and things and companies, but these days we've started talking of personal branding, and this has become very crucial because there is so much of competition, because there are so many people available, easily available for one role. You might, if you want to join any organization, earlier when I would go out hunting for a skill set, there would be very limited people we would find. But today, because of very easily available courses, because of the MBA institutes, the way they've been mushrooming up, the professional technical institutes, there is no plethora of people with different skill sets in the market. Then how do you differentiate yourself, and why do you think somebody should pick you up versus somebody else for a particular job? That is where personal branding really comes into the picture. The process by which individuals differentiate themselves by identifying and articulating their unique value proposition, their USP, and then leveraging it across platforms with a consistent message and an image to achieve a specific goal. Now, again, what we're talking of is first and foremost, you need to be very clear what your goal is. What do you want to achieve in life? So each one of you will have to have your mission, vision, statement ready. And these are not theoretical things. These are very critical in your, professional journey. What is your vision about yourself? What is your mission? What are your goals, your objectives? Once you have written down those specific goals, then you start working towards creating a personal brand around them also. And then you also start working towards making people know that personal brand of yours. Today it's a digital world. There are so many platforms available, whether it is LinkedIn or it is Insta or it is Facebook or it is, various kinds of things. You There are avenues available where you can talk of your brand. And then of course your day-to-day interaction with people, what your teachers, your faculty thinks about you, what people like me when they come into these forums think about each one of you. Do I take back an image about you and say, okay, this college, the students were very, very they were questioning a lot, they indulged a lot in understanding the topic, probably we should go back and pick up some students from there. So all of those things start happening when you build your own personal brand and work towards it. Now, why should you build a personal brand? Why should you even bother? Right? Reason to spend time figuring out what's important to you and what you hope to do professionally. Differentiate you from people who do similar work and create awareness of information that is important to your work. It allows you to give you and gives you an opportunity to put your best foot forward and build your own reputation. Way for the right kind of people or professional opportunities to find you, so that right set of people come to you with the right kind of job that you're looking for. Right opportunity knocks at your door. Your external professional image matches your internal values. A lot of times, who we are and what we present are very different. We might be very honest people, but we do not present that through our actions. So we might be very analytical, we have great analytical skills, but we refrain from doing that analysis in front of people. So it is very important that your professional image matches your actual internal values and your knowledge. And of course, you have gifts to give this world. That is why you should do personal branding. Now, how do you start doing that? Determine your niche, because each of you has your own niche area. Each of you wants to do something different for the world, for your own self. Start writing that and start publishing that to people. Make people know that this is what you want to do, that you are available for that. Promote on social media, organize seminars, do a lot of networking, right? And these are few steps when you start building your own personal brand. Now, typically, let me just come back here. So personal brand becomes very important when you are already when you've embarked onto your professional career and you are looking at moving from one job role to another job role. That's the time your personal brand really comes into picture, because there are mentors and then there are what are those things called, sponsors, right? So there are sponsors in your organization or outside your organization who sponsor your jobs. Now they would do that depending on the experience they've had with you, depending on the personal brand you've created for yourself. Within your own classrooms, when there is a good project which comes up and a teacher wants to give that project to somebody, he or she might do that basis the personal branding you've done for yourself, right? Somebody out here, Varun, might say that, I'm a CA and I can do a lot of finance stuff better. And the teacher would say, okay, this job involves a lot of financial stuff. Let me give it to Varun, because that's a personal brand he's created around himself. Adil might have been talking more around rural marketing for last couple of months. So his personal brand is that he understands, rural India a lot. So if a product has to be launched there, a project has to be launched there, let me, take Adil's help. But that's a personal brand he's built up. Sonali, for example, over here, and we stay in the same condo complex. She's built a personal brand of, anything that you want to know. You can reach out on the group and write, I want this help. And we know that Sonali will give you that help. So for me, at least, her personal brand is that I can reach out to her for any and everything in life. Whether I need a tailor around, I need need to know a very complex thing. How do you solve that? I need to know where I can get my car painted. I need to know anything at all, any kind of issue. There is a group that we have, and I'll write a question out there, and Sonali would answer. So that's the personal brand she has. That's the confidence I have in her. There is a personal brand which Anjali Amar carries, which is about, she is a very confident person. She speaks well. She's ambitious. She wants to rise. So that's a brand that I have built over the years. There is a lot of effort which goes into building your personal brand, and sooner you can start doing that, better it is going to be for you. While knowingly or unknowingly, you've already built your personal brand to some extent, right? But the professional life is yet to start. So please sit back, think about what you want your brand to be like, and then start working towards it. Then start, imbibing knowledge around it and talking about it. And this personal brand can also change. It's not that you can stick only with one brand image. There are a lot of brand makeovers you've read, right? A lot of companies have done brand makeovers for their own products. The way they do it for their products, you also become a product for your own self in your own minds. So when you realize that, this is not what I want to do, I want to move into a different industry and I want to project a different image, you will have to create your personal brand all over again with those particular traits in your mind. But it's crucial that you build your personal brand so that people give you jobs accordingly and they give you raises accordingly and they know you for those personal, qualities of yours and things that you've created around yourself. So that's what I had for today. One difficult topic of critical thinking and two interesting ones around personal branding and self-leadership, very close to my heart. Any questions I'm absolutely open to. But even before you start asking questions, I'm available to help you, mentor you anytime. You can reach out to me. My number and mail IDs are there in the presentation. Adil can share them with you. But wish you all the luck for your coming new year, for your coming year and your learning year. Spend a lot of time in understanding and learning when you are in the college, because these days are never going to come back. This is a very cliched thing that जो college में दिन बिताते हो पुरानी jeans वाले गाने की तरह वो वापस नहीं आते, but that's a fact. This is the best time of your life. Spend good time interacting with your friends, but also learning a lot. Thank you.
So, ma'am, I think we don't have any questions from the students. So I
Okay.
would just like to thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, making the time, and for this very interactive session. I'm sure everyone here could now actually reflect on the importance of critical thinking, self-awareness, personal branding, and everything. So thank you so much once again.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Have a lovely evening, all of you.